Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the United Nations
Bonjour à toutes, bienvenue à la COP 15 à Montréal, Canada. Je m'appelle David Answorth et je suis responsable sur la diversité et la nature. Nous sommes décembre 12. C'est vraiment la moitié de notre convention. Hier était une journée très occupée.
Governments, the Nature and Culture Summit, and the 5th Science Policy Forum. These three events continue today with rich programs of activities and announcement. I'm going to ask you to look at the website of the convention for details of these activities. You'll find these under the Associated Events tab on our website. Today, the Business and Biodiversity Forum begins. The two-day event will provide a unique opportunity for the business community to have an open dialogue on what business action really looks like. What are the policies needed to scale up ambition and to identify tools and solutions that can support companies in moving away from business as usual? The Business and Biodiversity Forum will also provide an opportunity for engaging governments, policymakers, business leaders, the finance sector, and other interest groups in the discussions of how we can support implementation of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework goals and targets. The forum will also provide an opportunity to share examples of scalable and replicable initiatives from the private sector that are already in place. And then finally, the summit will give us a chance to understand how standards and frameworks can help and guide businesses in their journey towards more sustainable practices. The opening session for this begins in room 210A this morning. The high-level panel will set the stage for the business forum, and it will bring together high-level representatives that will be highlighting the role of the private sector towards the successful implementation of our post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. They'll look at the ambition needed to scale up action and the role of government in creating an enabling environment through the right policies and measures. The speakers in this opening will be Elizabeth Maruma Mrema, the Executive Secretary of the Convention on Biological Diversity, Joe Tyndall, the Director of the Environment Directorate of the OECD, Diane Holdorf, who is Executive Vice President of the World Business Council on Sustainable Development, Julia Simpson, who is the CEO of the World Travel and Tourism Council, Kui Shuhong, who is the Director General of Natural Ecology Protection Department of the Ministry of Ecology and Environment of China. This will all be facilitated by Jorge Laguna Celis, who's the head of the One Planet Network, the 10-year framework for production and consumption of UNEP. Negotiations here at COP15, the Biodiversity Conference, begin again today after one-day break. The contact group on the Global Biodiversity Framework will meet at 10 a.m. and will run all morning and afternoon. But before they do this, they will have a number of informal consultations. So first of all, we've had informal consultations on Target 1 that started at 8 a.m. this morning. They will try to cover some ground before the entire group meets more generally in about half an hour. Just to recall, Target 1 is to ensure that all land and sea areas globally are under integrated biodiversity inclusive spatial planning. And so that looks at questions of land and sea use change and looking at ways of retaining existing intact and wilderness areas. There also will be informal consultations on Target 5 that began just a matter of moments ago. Target 5 is about the harvesting, trade, and use of wild species. And this target is to ensure that this is sustainable, legal, and safe for human health. The Budget Committee continues their deliberations at 10 a.m. this morning and goes all day. I'm very interested in that, given that that's the budget that pays my salary. There will be a Friends of the Chair group on digital sequence information from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. today. And then starting at 3 p.m., we will have a contact group on resource mobilization that will continue as well. The evening will be intense negotiations for delegates again. We will have a Friends of the Chair on the indicators for the Global Biodiversity Framework starting at 7:30. And then there will also be a contact group on the question of capacity building this evening. Today is busy for press conferences. So today at 10 a.m., we have a press conference organized by Brahma Kumaris, the World Spiritual University, entitled Spiritual Imperative and Moral Urgency of an Ambitious Global Biodiversity Framework. At 10:30, the European Union will have their press conference. At 11 o'clock, WWF will deliver their daily briefing. At 11:30, Stand.Earth will have a press conference entitled Oil and Gas Threats to Key Tropical Forests. Then at noon, the World Travel and Tourism Council will do a press conference on nature-positive travel and tourism. 12:30, we will have a press conference organized by the Indigenous Communities Conservation Areas Consortium, ICCA, entitled Local Indigenous Solutions to Global Challenges in Burma and Myanmar. Then we have a break then of a bit, and then at 2 p.m., the Age of Union Alliance will have announced a major commitment to jungle keepers for protection in the Amazon rainforest. And then at 4 p.m., the Mairesse de Montréal, the Mayor of Montreal, Valérie Plante, will have a press conference. And then there will be a press availability this afternoon with the Executive Secretary for the Convention on Biodiversity. So at 16:45, we'll just have an open press availability for her, so you can ask questions of her as part of her busy schedule. That's what I have for you for now. I'll now turn to my colleague Marc-André, who will talk about what the Government of Canada has organized for us, and then I'll take questions. Marc-André, to you.
Thank you, David. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. Please note that, as per usual, the speech will be made in both official languages, starting by French and ending by English. Bonjour à tous. Au nom du gouvernement du Canada, je suis heureux de partager avec les représentants des médias ici.
I'm very happy to be here today online. The main activities that we have today on the 12th of December. Today, there's going to be an announcement about natural resources. General Natal Wilkinson is he's going to participate to 2 announcements. The 4 events are going to be in the Pavilion of Canada, which is on the same level as the Media Centre. 11:30, the Minister Wilkinson is going to talk about the coalition and the sustainable minerals. That's going to be the COP of all the announcements that are going to take place today. 12:30, the Minister Gilbro is going to talk about natural resources with General Wilkinson, with the restoration of forests that have been degraded. There's going to be indirect on the platforms. So this is going to be announced at 2 p.m. The Minister Wilkinson is going to announce the Indigenous population. 4 p.m. Minister Wilkinson is going to announce the participation of the young people. So 4 announcements that are going to take place today at 11:30, 12:30, 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. So the calendar is here at your disposition, Canada.sr. Today, the topic, it's the day of the innovative financing, the resources. So you're going to have the schedules. We're going to have 5 events. The first 2 events are simultaneous, and they're going to show the role of Canada in the forest restoration and the nature restoration. Then the creation of gardens also, and the urban health, organized by Polyflora. It's an organization. Then at 4 o'clock, we have natural resources in Canada for the forests. We've got also an evening starting at 6 p.m. until 7:30, which is going to be organized on the projects for sustainability, ecological and financial sustainability for Indigenous people and the conservation oil. And then we have a financing for the projects for the conservation of Indigenous people in Canada, organized by the Initiative of Indigenous Leaderships, and many more. We have the entire program of the pavilion at your disposition on our platform. The Canadian government is continuing to publish the principal events and the upcoming events, but also there on the platform to simplify everything. And if you've got any questions, comments, please get back to me or to anyone who's here physically in the media, or to write to us to media@gc.ca. Thank you.
For December 12th. Today, Minister Guilbeault will participate to an announcement with the Canadian Minister of Natural Resources, the Honourable Jonathan Wilkinson. Minister Wilkinson will participate as well to 3 other announcements for a total of 4. All 4 events will happen at the Canada Pavilion in the Palais des Congrès on the same floor as we are right now in the International Media Centre. At 11:40, first of all, Minister Wilkinson will make an announcement on sustainable critical mineral coalitions and challenge. A press release will be released at the time of the announcement, as it is the case for all 4 announcements today. At 12:30 p.m., Minister Guilbeault will participate to a joint announcement with Minister Wilkinson regarding the Bond Challenge and the restoration of deforested and degraded land. This event will also be live streamed on Environment and Climate Change Canada platforms. At 2 p.m., Minister Wilkinson will make an announcement on weaving Indigenous knowledge. A press release will be obviously published at the time of the announcement. And finally, at 4 p.m., Minister Wilkinson will make another announcement on youth participation. And I remind you that all these 4 announcements happening at 11:30, 12:30, 2, and 4 will be from the Canada Pavilion. Talking about the Canada Pavilion, about the programming for the day. Today is Innovative Funding and Resource Mobilization Day. Here's a quick overview of the events for today. There are 5 events. The first 2 are happening at the same time at 9:30. The first one, Seeds of Change, highlighting Canada's role in forest and land restoration, which is organized by Natural Resources Canada. And the second one is Creating Pollinator Gardens, a Sustainable Solution for Urban Health, which is organized by Coopérative de Polyflora. At 1:45 p.m., the event is Weaving Indigenous Knowledge in Western Science, Echoes from the Forests, organized by Natural Resources Canada and Canadian Forest Service. Then we're going to the evening. At 6 p.m., there's an event on Northwest Territories Project Finance for Permanence, organized by the Indigenous Leadership Initiative. And at 7:30 p.m., there's Project Finance for Permanence, a transformative model to support Indigenous-led conversation across Canada, organized once again by the Indigenous Leadership Initiatives. The Canada Pavilion is open every day from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. The full programming is also available on canada.ca. I would also remind you that the Government of Canada is issuing daily highlights that you might have received the numbers of time so far. These daily highlights are also available on canada.ca as well every night. If you have any requests for questions, information, or interviews, please feel free to contact our team on the ground here at the International Media Center while you're there. You can also reach out to us by email at media@ec.gc.ca. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marc-André. Merci beaucoup. I now open the floor to any questions. Can we get a microphone to the people? I see 2 hands. Please go ahead.
David Owen Fairclough from China Global Television News. Could you give us an update, please, on where things stand on digital sequences information, and perhaps a clarification that might be my understanding? I'd see in some of the draft documents there's a suggestion that this would fall outside the scope of any agreement. Can you talk to that and give us an update on where things stand and what are the really difficult issues here?
Well, the negotiations are ongoing, so I won't be able to give you the definitive sense. But when you said that, yes, there is one of the views is that indeed digital sequence information, given that it is digital, given that it's not physical resources, one of the positions amongst parties is that indeed it is beyond the scope of the Convention on Biological Diversity. But that's one point of view. There is another that suggests that because digital sequence information is derived from actual physical resources at some point in time, indeed it does need to be captured under the Convention. I mean, one of the issues is that so to receive this information in the first place, presumably, some people will say you would have had to access a genetic resource in the first place, which means that the provisions of the Nagoya Protocol and equitable benefit sharing would apply. The other point of view is that digital sequence information indeed represents a fair amount of transformation of the initial genetic resources. In some cases, it may result in the creation of novel information, which is quite different from the original genetic resource. So those another argument to indicate that it is outside of the scope. But these are the different positions that are advanced, and they're seeking to resolve them. Because they're still discussing, they haven't resolved those issues. I think what it comes down to is some clarity on what is digital sequence information. You could imagine the definitions as sort of as a series of concentric circles, right? So digital sequence information could simply be the description of the genetic material itself. That's the most innermost part. You could also say that digital sequence information refers to any other associated proteins or other substances that are derived from it. The circle gets larger. The outside part of the circle could say that, well, digital sequence information addresses not just those first two, but it also addresses the question of the knowledge used to unlock these. And that's the question of the traditional knowledge, in many cases, held by Indigenous peoples and local communities. And so that definition of what it is still under discussion. And you remember, there are different positions, but one is to say that there's so much indeterminate in terms of that we need to negotiate or understand that before we move forward. And there are others that say, notwithstanding that uncertainty, we should still be advancing and moving forward on incorporating it under the protocol. So that is the polls, and those discussions are still ongoing. If they had resolved those issues and came to a consensus, we wouldn't have the contact group on it. So I know that's both specific and unclear at the same time. Sorry. We had a question, I think, here next.
Oui, bonjour, Éric Pierre Champagne, La Presse. Est-ce que...
Hello, this is Eric Champagne from the press. When can we expect a new draft of an agreement like the one we received last week?
Okay, je vais répondre en français et puis aussi.
Thank you for the answer. I'm going to give an answer in French and in English. Nobody's wearing the headset, so I'm going to do that. So the contact group is going to continue discussing at the moment. So as soon as they got a version of the document that we received on our website. So we've got to look for the documents there. A complete document which collects everything, which is probably going to... We need the pieces, parts, a few situations going to be ready. Since we haven't discussed about it yesterday, we're waiting for something new. Probably not this evening, but probably in a soon.
The document, the question was, what are we going to receive? When will we get a new draft of the framework? A complete draft of the framework text won't be available until near the end of the meeting. But the contact groups that are dealing with specific goals or targets of it will probably issue informal documents over the next few days. So you look at our website and look for the issuing of non-papers on this, and you will see it coming forward. But it is dealt with in little chunks, and so those will be emitted in the next little while. There's a lot to discuss. So another question? Take here in the first row and then in the second row after that.
Hi there, Patrick Greenfield from The Guardian. I just wanted to check about the presidency's plans for when ministers get involved in negotiations. As I think under the current plan, it's Saturday afternoon, which is very, very late, and there are lots of issues to be discussed. Has that changed? Should we expect to see ministers get involved early on? I mean, there's nobody from the presidency here to explain what's going on, and hasn't been throughout. So what's the latest there?
So with regard to the engagement of ministers, ministers begin the high-level segment on the 15th with their sort of statements and discussions. Many of them will start arriving on the 14th. And there will be informal discussions taking place behind the scenes right from that very date. In fact, even now, there has been ministerial engagement. There was a ministerial event that happened in Sharm el-Sheikh that actually where some of these discussions already began. So there's both the informal behind the scenes process and then the formal process moving forward. With regard to the engagement of the government of China, we'll be having a press briefing featuring them tomorrow, and then we'll have an opportunity to find out some of their plans and things moving forward. But I think it's important in these negotiations to understand that the style of engagement of the presidency and associated regions varies from mission to mission. So, the way that a presidency engages in the process, there's no one model. And so, in fact, on one hand, you say, oh, there's very little engagement taking place. In fact, a lot of informal things happen behind the scenes, but it's a different style of things. So, there. Next question. Yeah, to the second row, please.
Thank you. My name is Kevin O'Sullivan from the Irish Times. Just listening to the stock-taking plenary on Saturday, it seemed to me that most of the parties were coming with the wish list, aspirational, and there seemed to be lack of indication of big progress. Can you give us, firstly, where things are in terms of progress, and also can you comment on the mood in terms of pushing for a meaningful deal?
So in terms of progress, I myself will have to get an additional update. The Bureau did not meet yesterday. The Bureau is not meeting this morning. They'll meet again tomorrow morning. So in fact, I'll get an update from the status of things. And they didn't negotiate yesterday either, so there's nothing new. Those of you who were here for my briefing on, okay, what day was it? It was Friday, right? People remind me when I give the briefing? Yes. All right. I've lost track of what day it is. There was some progress made in the contact group. I mean, I think at one point in time they said that they had managed to move forward on 56 brackets of the text, if we can use that as a measure. Then in the evening, they managed to make progress. They added 8 brackets and then took 6 away, etc. So there is slow progress, but a great deal more has to take place. With regard to the mood, I think I'm going to have you sort of, get on your reporter's legs and check with the different regions and see how things are doing. I mean, I think indeed what we saw in the stock-taking plenary was indeed an expression of a lot of aspirations, what people hoped in the regions. That was a public statement. What's going on behind the scenes is differently. So regrettably, I, as the Secretariat, am really not in a position to tell you what Brazil or Ireland or Indonesia feels. You're going to have to check with a lot of them. But certainly the European Union will have their press conference in about 45 minutes. I think that's a good question to ask them. Thanks very much. The fourth row over here, please. Mike to the fourth row.
Hi, thanks. I'm James Deneen from New Scientist.
Oh, great.
Once the contact groups issue their non-papers, how much should we expect the content in the non-papers to change by the final draft?
Wow. So if I knew that, I would be able to predict lottery numbers, and I think I would be here as well. If an optimistic assumption is that each step of the contact group moves us forward closer, we should be seeking to find points of convergence and consensus, which means those brackets should be removed. We even assume that the brackets that are there represent sort of more fixed negotiating positions, which allows the parties to predict how they're going to move, but we don't know. So the optimistic take is, yes, this will mean that each one brings us closer. But as we've seen in this process, we've had steps forward and steps back. As well. So I think, again, just like I had my answer to our question from Ireland, you'll need to take that document and then go around and double check with the parties yourselves to see how it looks forward. And like I said, until I see the Bureau meeting tomorrow morning, I won't have an overall sense. Maybe I'll be able to give something more impressionistic tomorrow. Thanks. Any more questions? We have one in the back row here, sort of behind the microphone people.
Hi, thank you. My name's Phoebe Weston. I'm from The Guardian.
2 Guardian questions in one now.
Yeah.
Yeah, dominating the floor.
I've already asked about a list of delegates being published and told that there isn't one or it's not being published, but want to follow up on that, whether you will be publishing a list of delegates in the coming days.
Yeah, sure. Sorry if I didn't provide those details when I replied to your email on that one. So letting everybody know is I have the numbers before me. There's a massive spreadsheet that tells me how many delegates from which countries and those things, but I don't have the final list. The practice we have is we try to publish it as soon as possible, but with regard to capacity and also waiting for some of the people to confirm their registrations, it happens a lot later. So to be honest, a lot of that happens at the end because we've got these pre-registrations, but not all of them show up, for example, or there may be changes in the last minute. So I may not have that list to you for a number of days later. I'll try my very, very best, but that is the practice. Because I think under the climate change, they might get it out sooner, but they don't get it out at the beginning of the meeting. So we'll see. But I'll do my very best, Phoebe. We'll see what we can do.
So you mean before the end of the meeting, you're looking to get it out, but when you say in a couple of days, before the end of the meeting rather than after the meeting finishes?
Yes, I hope to get it off a few days before the end of the meeting.
Okay,
but yeah.
great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Let me just look online. I don't see anything on the YouTube link, and I don't see anything on the Interactio link. So I don't think we have anything else. Still have a few more minutes left if anybody has any other questions. No, that's good. Okay, right. So have a good day today, everybody. And just letting you know that, in the days to come,